Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I am your host, Dr. Harbir Sayan. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to join me here. I truly appreciate all the support. And every time you take time out of your busy schedule to join me here, it really means a lot because I know there's a million things you could be doing. I have an amazing conversation lined up for you. I think you're definitely not going to regret taking that time out of your busy schedule to join us here. I have an amazing guest, Dr. Haris Dzubur, joining me from Chicago. Dr. Dzubur is a dry eye specialist, enthusiast, all sorts of things in the dry eye space. He has previously was the director of dry eye and optometry at an ophthalmology practice for 9 years, and recently purchased his own practice, optometry practice, and is just coming up on his 1-year anniversary in his own practice. Congratulations on that, Dr. Dzubur. And he is also adjunct faculty at the Chicago College of Optometry. We have a really cool story that we're going to be talking about, his story, his journey. So I'm really excited to share this with you. Thanks for joining me, Dr. Dzubur. Appreciate having you here, man.
Thanks for having me. I listen to your podcast all the time. It's an honor to be on there. Someone said like getting on your podcast again, like on Oprah. For us, it's like
someone did say that. Claudine said that.
Someone did say, yeah, she said that. I agree. I chuckled. Yeah.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. Claudine is very, very kind and very generous with her praise. I don't know if I would consider myself anything related to or anywhere near Oprah, but I will take the compliment, and it's very kind. Thank you. So Haris, man, you have why don't you tell us a little bit about, I think the best way to start this is give us your bio. Like, how do you introduce yourself, or what things you want to tell people about yourself? And then we're going to kind of rewind the clock to your childhood, because there's some very interesting things that I think are really worth sharing. But you go ahead and give me your little snippet of a bio.
Okay. Graduated college in Chicago. Took off to Texas to go to University of Cardinal Ward for optometry school at Rosenberg School of Optometry. Did that, graduated there in 2014. Picked up on Milan Bruich's advice to what he did was cover the whole region with his resume. So I did the same. Got a couple calls from different ophthalmology offices, so on and so forth. Started working at an OD office where they wanted a young medical guy. So I said no to a couple of corporate options, wanted to go straight medical. That was kind of what made me excited about our profession, so to speak. And did that for about 8 months. Then I got a call from another ophthalmology office that was much closer to home, and took a job with them. Shortly into getting into work with this ophthalmology office, I think the owner recognized in me that I can be more than just like, one of his 9-to-5ers. So he gave me my own office, let me kind of treat it as my own. So I got to kind of play owner at my own, satellite location, and make all the decisions, create protocols, and so on and so forth. So that kind of propelled me. I got to school, really wanted to do contact lenses, specialty lenses, and so on and so forth. So I was very deliberate about my education and getting experience with that. So when I got out, all I saw in the beginning was just like nasty blef and dry eyes, and just like untreated stuff. And I'm just the type of personality where I can't just leave things. I can't let things be if they're not right. So that kind of led me into down the rabbit hole of dry eyes, and more specifically blepharitis, meibomian gland dysfunction. And that's kind of where I really kind of dug my heels in, and started creating protocols for cleanings of lids and expressions and heat treatments and things like that. Before all the fun, technology came out.
Right.
And I still use some of that stuff today. So now I'm, a small business owner, prior practice owner. About a year ago, bought an office from a medically minded optometrist, and been there for a year. Still spend about a day at the ophthalmology office, functioning as the director as much as I can. But yeah, it's been a really fun journey. I've learned a ton. I've got to learn how to speak ophthalmology and speak optometry, and I can merge the two languages, and I can talk in either room. And I'm really fortunate to have that kind of education. It's like a master's program in OD/MD business that I got to experience with my ophthalmology boss after I graduated, after I took that job. So I've been really fortunate throughout my career to be in really good rooms, really important rooms, and learn from the best, I would say.
Yeah, not a lot of ODs. Yeah, no, not a lot of ODs get to spend that much time in a room with ophthalmologists and kind of speak with them at that level. So that definitely puts you in a different kind of category for sure, because it's not the same. As much as we are both eye care professionals and we're both trying to help, take care of people's eyeballs, it's a different kind of conversation, I imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
So the really interesting and intriguing thing that I think, where I think it's important for us to kind of go to start, because it's going to lay the foundation for some of the other, optometry type of conversations we're going to have, is where you grew up, and when you grew up there. So I want to, help people kind of visualize this. Bosnia in the late 80s, early 90s, what that was like, and when did you come to the United States?
For sure. Let's do a quick geographic history lesson. So in the late 90s, Yugoslavia, which is comprised of all the Eastern European countries, started to break apart because their fearless leader, the communist Tito, died. And as these different countries started taking their independence, the wars broke out because the leading country, that was Serbia at the time, that led this, conglomerate, or like these states, wanted to hold on to power and everything. So when we broke open, when we decided to, break apart, or announce our independence, shortly thereafter, like a huge military campaign ensued, kind of similar to what happened in Ukraine, where a false flag operation, all this killing started. These paramilitaries rolled in from the north of the country, from Serbia, and just started like kind of exterminating villages, killing people off. And we were in a town farther away, more civilized, more organized. So my dad's plan when this war erupted in 1992 was like, let's wait it out. I built a new house, got 2 kids, got a wife. I'm really well established in the community. We could probably just like let this little thing peter over. It won't turn into a big war, because everyone's really optimistic at the time. Oh, it's not going to turn into anything else. We're neighbors, type of thing, and they were wrong. These folks, came in with the municipal lists of everyone and what they did. And first week, 3 of my uncles disappeared. One was like the owner of the kind of restaurant bar go-to place for the weekends for the town, and he was the first one to disappear the first weekend. And then that week, 2 more of my uncles disappeared, and we still to this day don't know where they are or where their whereabouts are. We just hope that every mass grave they uncover everyone more new graves every summer, that we're going to find their remains, and my aunt's widows can put that chapter to rest, so to speak. So my dad got a job working at the local school, like a volunteer job, just to stay out of public view, because it was kind of one of those things, like your name tagged you who you were. They didn't, and it was a funny thing. We have an event in the summer where we wear white armbands, and we commemorate, because the aggressors made us wear white armbands when we're out in public, and hang them out on our windows, so they knew who the Bosnian Muslim houses were. And it was kind of similar to Nazi Germany. It was like the second time that was ever done since that. And we commemorate our fallen or our dead with those white armbands in July every year. And so my dad, on the way home one day, gets picked up by 2 military guys in a car, say, "You're coming with us." They knew who he was right away. And he explained to them what he was doing at the school, but they didn't really want to hear any of that stuff. And they took him, and I remember coming home, and in the front yard, everybody, my aunts, my mom, my uncle, everyone was kind of frantically like trying to do something. I don't know, they're trying to like see my uncle off, and my mom hands him some sort of black duffel bag, and he disappears. And he comes back in about an hour and a half. My dad, everyone's rejoicing, everyone's happy. And what had happened, he was part of the civil defense. He called his friend, who was a Serb, who they went to high school with, one of their best friends. They went together to this train station, or bus station, I'm sorry. And the Serb guy got on and said, "Hey, that guy in the back, he's got a job at the school, a worker job. He's not done yet. Once he gets done with that job, then you guys are free to take him, but he still has to stay." So that was kind of the ruse they gave these guys on the bus to get my dad off. And my dad got off, and the next morning we were already, on our way in another bus. In the middle, 4 a.m. I remember it was like really cold, and you can see like the dew of like the grass, and it was like smoky, like, it's a scary morning. And we got on a bus, and that bus ride felt endless. And it was the only time that I ever actually see my dad cry. I remember waking up in the middle of the night in the bus, there was not enough seats. So he was standing and holding on to the little rail thing on the bus. And I see him just like shedding tears. and I really know what to make of it. That was the first time I saw him
Yeah.
ever cry. I've never seen him cry again. And I've told him the story, and he like kind of like, he'll take it, but he doesn't acknowledge anything. And from there, we went to our refugee camp surrounded by barbed wire and UN forces, and had really fun memories of that camp. Played soccer in the mud. We had a friend who knew how to speak English, so he would like talk the UN guys into give us soccer balls, and got to share those little dry crackers with the powdered milk. And those meals were like, man, God sent. Those were so delicious and so warm, and you got to share them with these friends who you knew only for a couple of months, and you never see these people again in your life, but you create such like bonds. And we would share these things in between like two bunk beds, because two bunk beds would create like an apartment for your family. And he would come over my house, my bunk beds, and we would like, share. And then his bunk beds were closer to like one of those plastic windows, and we could like see outside and see if the soccer game was going to pick up. So from there, we got moved over to Croatia, and we lived in like a military school. They converted a military school into a refugee sort of encampment or camp or whatever. And we got there, and it was like, I started going to school. I started going, I think it was second grade, because I went to first grade in Bosnia. And I remember my memories from there was like, my parents took my brother out for ice cream, and I couldn't go because I had to learn my multiplication tables. So I'm walking around this camp, crying 1 times 1, 4 times 7, like, just and like just like imagining them like scarfing down delicious ice cream. And that's how I learned my multiplication tables real fast, because I did not want to miss ice cream again. And from there, we had a choice to go to Germany or to come to the U.S. A lot of Bosnians had this choice, and a lot had to go to Germany because they didn't have any, U.S. family. And we had an aunt that lived in the United States and was able to provide us with proper paperwork for us to come here. And we got here in the summer of 1995, and we were put in like a Rogers Park area, which is not a great neighborhood. It's much gentrified over the last 30 years. But when I moved there, there was a bunch of these other Bosnian families that all of a sudden moved in the same area, and we traveled together because we didn't want to get attacked by gang members. Like, I remember walking down the street. If you saw guys across the street cross to your side, it was time to turn and run. So that hardened us quick. You came and like, you're like, you're a little happy-go-lucky kid, and you run to war, and you see, military guys outside your house, and like, with their checkpoints, and you get away from all that, and then you get to like 90s Chicago. Man, it's like, I feel like you need that 90s, like, music for the movies.
Yeah. Well, I'm already hearing that in my head right now.
Yeah. Like that was like thinking back now, man, I was here in the 90s as a kid, like walking the streets of Chicago in the 90s, because we could just walk wherever we wanted to in Bosnia. We still kept that like freedom about us. So we were kids, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, just walking around those Chicago streets like in packs, and together to protect ourselves. And that's how I grew up in Chicago. And I love growing up in Chicago in the 90s, man. Thinking back, what a fun life, man.
Yeah.
It's
a crazy story, man. And it's again, saying earlier, it's not, I guess, unique. There's other people obviously who've gone through this, but it's not one that we hear that often. I think it's really important to remember and get that perspective on different upbringings and backgrounds. But there's a couple of times that you kind of said it again towards the end. But what I pick up on there is the interesting thing is, even though those are obviously some difficult times, whether it was in Bosnia and that whole process, or even when you came to the States in Chicago and you lived in this rough area, but you still as a kid seem to have these fond memories, and you seem to make the most of it, which is really great, and it's cool that when you look back, you don't just see negative, you see some positive in there. And it reminds me of like a couple of times I've gone to travel to, maybe more developing parts of the world, where you would see people and you'd think they're less fortunate based on what they have, but you see them laughing and smiling, and the kids playing and all these things. And it just gives you that perspective again, like, they are making the most of what they have and enjoying it. And we often should try to do the same, right? But we get caught up in all the stuff that we want.
I think human life creates happiness. Just like as a child, you go through war, but all you have like these little fun anecdotes about when you were like these little pockets of happiness. And our brain wants, at least my brain, I want to live in a happy state, and not like, there's so many reasons to be unhappy these days, right? You wake up, you turn the news on, man, you just want to grab your head,
Yeah.
And I try to compartmentalize my happiness and just try to seek happy moments. And that's how it was even like when days were dark. Just kind of, that keeps your brain, I think, healthier, different chemicals.
No doubt. So let's fast forward a bit. You already moved to the States. Let's talk about kind of going through optometry school. What was that process like for you? You said you went to the Rosenberg School of Optometry.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
So me and you are similar. I think we were not the best students. I was not a straight A student. Like, I was like, hey, I need a GPA above 3. Give
Yeah.
me a good chance to get into these schools, and also gives me a chance to live life. Like, I didn't want to be, you know, um, a slave to stuff, but I was more of a geek and I enjoyed the library. So
Mm.
as I got further into college, sophomore year and junior year, man, I was like geeked up to get done with school, get my workout in. I was like, man, today is gonna be 5, 6 hours in the library. Oh, I'm gonna, go through all this stuff. And I started walking on the library in my socks, and I just kind of got,
That's awesome.
I was thinking about, would I want to spend the next like 8 years doing this, or like having a 9 to 5 or starting work? I was like, no, like I'll delay work and I'll just like live at the library and meet other people, that are in my situation, and you build friendships that way. So I never looked at it as like, 4 more years of studying. I'm like, ooh, 4 more years, like, I'm gonna learn so much. Pick a good library out. Like, that was my whole thing. And and when I send my application in, you have to have another OD write you a letter of recommendation, and older ODs are not great at technology, and
Mm.
we all know it to this day. And the OD, God bless her, that was supposed to submit my letter of like recommendation, didn't submit it properly, and then took off on like on a snorkeling adventure for 3 weeks, and like 20 something school deadlines dwindled away. And I'm like, my parents like, why don't you spend another year working and like stay local, and apply to the local school and go here. And I'm like, I don't want to spend another year. I'm just like, what am I gonna do for a year? And so I decided to. There was like three or four schools left. The Texas school, San Antonio, and then Arizona, and then California. So I went to Texas first. Did the interview there on Friday. Monday morning, I got an email that I was accepted. I canceled all my other interviews. I was like,
Mhm.
done. I was
That's it.
good enough. I was like, liked it. Looks brand new. They showed a picture of what the clinic would look like. I was like, oh, good enough for me. It looks like really nice.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was a small program, and I love the intimacy of it and all that stuff. So decided to go there. Great choice. Got a lot of friends in Texas now, the West Coast, so that opened up that whole side of the country for me.
Right.
And graduated, came back to town, um, started working for optometry office. They brought me on as the young guy to do medical. It was about an hour drive each way, and I did that hour drive like turning down like corporate just because I wanted to be in medical right away. I don't want to get jaded and get comfortable, and then like make it harder for myself. So started working there. Worked there for about 8 months. Got T-boned leaving work one day,
Oh, wow.
and in the hospital, I'm like, maybe I should look for something closer. Like driving in these kind of conditions, you
Yeah.
know, playing Russian roulette, maybe not the best idea. So once I came back from the hospital in a couple of months, I like sent out. Oh, I got contacted by ophthalmology office that was initially contacted me when I blanketed the region
Right.
with resumes. So they said, hey, come back, interview again. And once I talked to them, the owner was really took to me and saw my energy and said, hey, I have an office in Chicago. Why don't I put you there and let you bill it for me, because it wasn't managed properly. And when I got there, you could tell because it was like four to six patients a day, and this place is like 5, 6 years old. It just doesn't make sense.
4 to 6?
4 to 6 a day, like you'd
Oh,
be
wow.
scheduled 12, and you're gonna see like 4 6. So there
Oh,
was like a
wow.
huge no-show rate. There wasn't a lot
Right.
of buy-in from like for the people that were coming there. It was just kind of like a flailing office.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, I did everything. I was like the manager. I was like, can you answer this question in the front? So the front desk would ask me questions. The back, the middle, everything. Everybody was asking me stuff. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to use this opportunity to like play pretend. I'm going to play pretend owner. And my boss at the time encouraged me. He's like, you should tell people you're the owner there, so they can get a new sense that it's a fresh office. It's a fresh management thing. So because the reputation in the area, like when you mentioned that office name, was like, ooh, oh, we sent to you guys. We never got any,
I see.
reports, any communication, and nothing. I was like, well, we got new management. I'm here. I'm the new face. We're going to change all that. And fast forward, I think I got there in 2015, and I just left that office like last year. Like I handed it off to my trainee, and we almost tripled what that office was doing. And that office has like a regular 30 plus patients a day, 40 or sometimes more than can even handle physically, I would say. So we've done a really good job, and it wasn't me. It was like you put a team together and then you just let them
Yeah.
work. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I got lucky. We're putting the right people in the right places. So from there, I was like, okay, now I got I've got that. I figured that out. Now I can go play for real money. So that was playing with like house money. Now I can play with my own
Yeah,
money.
right.
And I told my dry eye reps, my pharmaceutical reps, like, hey guys, I'm going to be trying to get my own office by the end of my 35th year, or I'm just going to stay where I am. My job was nice. I had no complaints. I loved my job. But it's different when you're the owner, or you can your word is what's going to happen versus I got to check that.
Yeah.
And I've never been great with authority. If high school, my junior year high school got I think at 3 times I got suspended for different incidents. And so I was never really good with people telling me what to do. You can ask me and work on me, and I'm really good at doing stuff that you want. But people authority wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
So told my reps, hey guys, I'm looking for an office. You know how I like to work. I'm a medical based guy. If you come across someone who's medically leaning, please bring him to my attention. So long story short, one of my reps says, hey, this lady, she's really well put together. She's got a nice medical based office, yada, yada, yada. He started having meetings with her. And then we ended up making a deal. And I've been here since October of 26th of last year. So we'll be doing a ribbon cutting tomorrow to celebrate our 1-year anniversary with the local community in the city. So that's where I land.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, love that. The last thing you just said there is something that I wanted to bring up with you anyways, because I remember you said it. We had lunch in Vegas, and one of the points that you kind of made, went out of your way to make, was that it's really important to be involved in the community. And you just said that now you're doing the ribbon cutting with the community tomorrow. Tell me about why that's been important and how that's helped you, and how maybe you do that, get involved in the community. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm. So my operations manager, Humera, is great at just kind of making small talk and, shooting out emails. And our first month here, she would just spend days missing. And she said, I went to this office, I went to the library, I went to this school, I went to the municipal building or whatever they are. And just chatted people up and got contacts and who can I email if, our office wants to do something here or something there. And slowly those little connects started paying dividends, where she brings me into a room. She's like, I know this is last minute, but there's a taste of Elmwood Park this weekend and we can have a booth. But I have that answer today and I need this much money. And I'm like, well, all right. I mean, if it's an opportunity, let's do it, whatever.
Yeah.
And so we did a taste of Elmwood Park. We were the only doctor booth, gave away the training on lid cleansing. We try to do things fun. And a lot of people came to the booth. Then a lot of city people came to the booth. Oh, you guys are in a doctor's office, in our community. I need an eye exam. So that's what got the ball rolling. And that event, we got to talking to the organizers. Oh, by the way, we have these other events coming down. You guys might like, we got wine and sip and stroll or something like that. And Christmas lights. So we're working on an OD Santa outfit. Where I've got overalls and that's it, and then up tops we're gonna have to figure something out. So we want to be unique awesome at that event, and then when you start, showing, opening your arms and open communications to the community, you start realizing a lot of these communities are eager for that, because a lot of their leadership is maybe older based and they want to be reached out to, they want to be talked to, they want to be informed. I get patients told all the time we get so much information thrown at us. He's like, we're not young. We need things repeated. We need things written. We need communication. So I've seen a really good sort of rebound in just investing in the community, and we're going to continue to do that. I think we're just scratching the surface. And then I told my staff, once we've got our local community, on our team, let's move on to the next suburb. There's suburbs all around us that we see opportunity that those people can use our services, but also our brand, our way of working, our friendship, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
That's been I think that's been the key to our success, and we'll copy and paste that.
That's great, man. That's great. So I know these topics, I wanted to touch on, obviously you do a lot of dry eye. And I want to touch on myopia management. I know these topics are kind of exhausted in a sense. I've talked a lot about them on my podcast, or I've had guests talk a lot about them, but from the perspective of an owner, you are an expert in the dry eye space, but I'm thinking more from the perspective of the clinic owner, and implementing these specialties is kind of where I want to come at it. How would you go about, if you're starting brand new, or how would you encourage somebody else to maybe implement dry eye into their practice, and why? How has it been beneficial?
Great question. I feel there's been this whole rush to the dry space of technology rush. Like
Yeah.
whenever, and I remember hearing in 2013 as a student saying like, whenever something gets hot, the machines come for it first. Almost like some Terminator
A
stuff. And I
Terminator.
was a
Yeah. Yeah.
student. I was a student. I was like, oh, cool, whatever. And then you saw the IPLs, the RFs getting fancier and schmancier, and like all these kind of different ways to eat a recess or to heat the lid, as I say. So I started off very low tech. My ophthalmology office was not going to invest all these like thousands of dollars for this OD guy to do some dry eye stuff, right?
Right.
So I had to make my own protocols. I remember flipping through Ocusoft magazine and finding out swap stick. I was like, oh, that tea tree, heat, express. I organize in certain steps, so it gives like the patient the best results. And I started doing that in 2015. My first, as we called it, my blef cleaning. And that kind of caught fire within the practice. The ophthalmologist started referring to me, the OD started referring to me. And then at that point, I was like, I don't like this price. There's a lot of work, and I want to double the price. And nothing happened. I just doubled the price and just kept. It was like busier. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna do it again. I was like, it's still not where I'm happy to do it. It's like I was like, so we raised the prices again, and again no problems. We did with more, and making money in dry eye is a dry topic. It's hard to make money in dry eye if you're not offering, treatments. You have to be unique in how you make how you like are profitable in dry eyes. I try to treat dry eyes like I treat glaucoma. I see my patients every 3 months. It keeps them where they should be. I heard somebody on here like saying like, oh, this is what I recommend. I don't recommend, I treat. I don't say you should do this and this. Here's my starting protocol. This is where we're going to get you going for the next couple, X amount of weeks. We're going to see you back. If this, then this. If not this, then this. So I kind of give them expectations. If you get better, great. I'm going to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. If you don't get better, we have other options. I don't try to sell or rush people into anything. I want to build trust, because what I encounter, and I've been a dry specialist for 10 years, right? 10 years. People, I'm like third layer of therapy. They'll go to the regular one, then they'll go something in the middle, then they'll Google me, or Google and find me. And I find people spend a ton of money on dry eyes. Some of them that come to see me, and it erodes trust. Like they were put up on all these kind of things, pumps and jumps and lumps, and they're still not feeling better because the time wasn't taken to really profile this dry eye person, really create a unique profile on what this person does, what their needs are, what their surface needs are, what their tear needs, what they currently have, or flip it. Dry eye has this person. Let's see who does dry eye have? Oh, it's got a person that doesn't do this and doesn't do that and doesn't do that. So I like to flip it on them. And I like to see them every 3 months because it keeps me successful. I can't think of treating dry eye telling somebody, hey, I'll see you next year, or I'll see you in 6 months. That's so long. Chicago, we're so rampant with allergens and like issues with our air that when I see people with 6 months, I feel like I did them a disservice. Like, we fallen behind here. We're stopped doing this. We've fallen off this horse. So I think regular follow-ups keeps you more successful, and long-term with your cases and with whatever you do. So I say I started dry on like a shoestring budget. I still think I'm on a shoestring budget compared to, other doctors. There's doctors that have been practicing dry eyes for a few years, and but they've got the big, Ferraris of dry eyes, I like to call them. And I'll see those patients where those Ferraris fail. I just had a patient from Wisconsin, was put on all the different types of devices and everything. And when all else fails, they were sent to me, not necessarily by their doctor, but by another patient from Wisconsin who was very adamant about her coming to see me. And then I still sent that doctor out a thank you letter for referral, like for the indirect referral.
Right.
But that's like, I see the fun cases, I would say, like, the ones that come to me, man. Yeah. They're cool.
So that just confirms again that the best type of marketing is always word of mouth, right? Like, ultimately, if you do a good enough job, that people are going to walk around advertising for you. So we have some of that equipment, the Ferrari, or thereabouts.
They're good. I wish.
Yeah, no, they're good, but like again, you have to look at it from a holistic perspective. And when I talk to other people who are experts that I trust in the space, often they're like, there's no magic bullet. Everything's like a piece of the puzzle, right? So if there's inflammation, then this type of treatment's probably going to help with that. If there's MGD, then this type of treatment's probably going to help with that. You know, if there's just a lack of tears and you got to put an artificial tear on top, then that's going to help with that. Like it's all together. You can't just say this one thing is going to fix the entire problem. So looking at it like that, looking at the person and looking at the holistic view is really, really important. And just diving in with one technology or another is not going to, you know, and I think that's a bit of a mistake that some people are making, is like they're getting sold this dream of what this machine might do for them, and forgetting that and then you got to, when you buy the machine, you got to spend all this time actually implementing it. Like you talked about your protocols and stuff and how important that is. That algorithm of like, if then if this, then that, is so important to develop. I didn't know that before. We only started to learn that as we started to get more into dry eye. And I was like, I can't just kind of keep making stuff up on the fly. I need to like know, like, if the patient responds like this, then we're going to do this next. Right. And I learned that eventually. So it's important that you mentioned that, I think. So anybody who's still maybe earlier on in their dry eye journey, that may be one of the most important steps before any fancy equipment or anything like that.
Definitely. I would say implement a simple procedure for dry eyes. It
Right.
could be a heat, a zest cleaning, whatever. You get really good at that implementation point, and then take the next bigger, more invested step. There's in consultants making millions of dollars on teaching practices how to use equipment they bought. They're like, I was talking to a local consultant. She's like, yeah, I'm going to go to California. We're going to teach them how to utilize LipiFlow. Like clinically, she's like, oh no, like in the business sense.
Right.
So there's people flying all over the country. Now you're spending money. Teach me how to operate this Ferrari, or how to drive this Ferrari. So I would say get really good at something simple that doesn't cost you a lot out of pocket. And then if that takes off, like, okay, hey, now let's add this. Now you got packages. Now you've got what all the big dry eye folks are doing is package 1, package 2, package 3, and so on and so forth. And then that makes you as successful as the other ones financially and clinically, and so on and so forth. First, start off simple.
Start small. Yeah, I think we all kind of look at the big shiny thing and want it, and it's human nature. Not to say that it's a mistake or that anybody's wrong for thinking that, but human nature. We always kind of want that
FOMO,
bright and shiny thing. Yeah, and the companies know it too. They're good at marketing. I look at some of these companies. I say, it's true you have this technology, but I think you're a marketing company first, and then a technology company second. Like the way that you market this stuff is crazy. They're so good at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes us want the thing.
Yeah, where you finish they finish their little speech and everything, and you're like, yeah, where? Let's go.
Yeah. It's like when you're going through a timeshare presentation or something, where you're like, okay, where do I sign?
Yeah. This is amazing. This is amazing. Yeah.
All right. So again, the other end of that specialty kind of conversation was the myopia.
Yes.
Again, this is like a conversation I've had a lot on my podcast this year, but because I think it's important, it's an important topic. But again, I try to approach it from the implementation standpoint, right? I think everybody knows it's important to do myopia management. There's lots of kids out there who's progressing and so on and so on. But like, where would you start, or have you started to implement that? And what have you done, if you don't mind sharing, successfully that's helped you build that program in your practice?
So I started a myopia control program at the ophthalmology office. And it was like the first ophthalmology office in town that offered myopia control. It's something that you usually didn't go to ophthalmology for.
Right.
And I created different buckets, atropine bucket, or with PALS, soft contacts, ortho K. Kind of selfishly wanted to fit more ortho K. And the way I was going to fit more ortho K was by doing myopia control. So like one led to the other, I would say. And then just like dry eyes, I get infatuated with stuff once I just get into it. I just like want to just eat it all up. And that's kind of what happened with myopia. Nowadays we're familiar with myopia control when we get out of school. But we don't really learn a lot of that through rotations. You gotta have nobody doing myopia control when I was going through rotations, at least. And so that was my window of, I can do more ortho K if I do myopia control. And then, I've been to Vision by Design, so I kind of knew how to start a program. And I wanted to do it just because I wanted to do it. Like, we saw so much myopia, we're just going to cycle through these kids and like let them get worse, or we're going to start offering something. And it was not very well accepted or championed or pioneered by the MD side. They're like, yeah, sure, if you want to do that, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And And now one of our MDs comes to see me with her kid for myopia. She was just
Mm.
here on Saturday. She's my oculoplastics. I love her, and she trusts me with her kid's eyes
That's awesome.
to control his. So she like believed first, and she's like, oh yeah, I've got kids, and I believe this stuff. And slowly the rest of everybody else came on board. And then it was like the MDs asking, hey man, tell us more about this, about what you guys do with this myopia stuff. Come see this, connective tissue disorder patient that I see from uveitis. What do you think about them? They're minus 12. I was like, yeah. So we got to do a lot of these unique cases with myopia control with Ortho K, and then my site. And then as the students rotated through, they were rotating through thinking they're going to get a lot of medical, which they do a ton. But then also they got scleral lenses, Ortho K, myopia control. So it was like, man, I went to ophthalmology and I got all these like primary OD things, right? And so once I moved from that ophthalmology office, I took all the things that I loved about our myopia program and copied them. And then everything that I didn't, I left. And heard Dr. Kading speak and got a couple ideas. Here he's genius. Jumped on his podcast, heard his podcast. So listening to him speak about stuff gave me more ideas, and just like colleagues, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I should do this, not this. Okay, yeah. I'll try that. And then created my own myopia MJ23 program, not to be confused with Michael Jordan 23. I don't know why I did that. I wanted to specifically launch it in 2023 instead of 22 because then I could use MJ23. So now my myopia kids get an MJ23 shirt, myopia journey 23.
Love it. We
launch it in 23. So that's the program I have here now. And every month we grow. Every in the beginning you grow by month. Hopefully I want to grow by the week, right? And then hopefully by the day. So that's where my focus is on now. This community does not have that, and the community surrounding this community does not have that, and we need quite a few myopia control docs out there if we're gonna take on all these cases that are coming, right? So that's kind of the next frontier, and like the doctors that I hire, hopefully in the future, will have that kind of as one of their focuses.
Yeah. When you mentioned growth there for a second, what type of metrics would you be using or looking at, even if it's just sort of, maybe not too specifically, but in general, like that you would help you see that you're growing? Is it the number of kids that you're seeing coming through the practice? How many are signing up for myopia management? Is there what else would you
myopia control consultations? So I would say, so we do a consult. I separate it away from any exam because it's not something I'm going to talk along the way of an exam. So I bring it back for the consult, and we dwell into the calculator, the simulator. We get into all that. Gotcha. And then we talk about our options, and we discuss kids' level of activity, what they would like to see, what they would like to do, what their prescription allows us to do. And then from there, I send parents and patient home with a folder of everything we discussed, and they have someone to follow up with. It's not me; it's a coordinator. They'll touch base, and usually I'll get a green light from that person, like, "Hey, mom and dad elected A, B, C, or whatever," and then it propels me into what I need to do now. So I do my consult. They exit with my staff, and then from there I get a green light or whatever, or yellow light or whatnot, when if they're gonna initiate therapy. If not, then we recommend accurate pair of glasses. And I'd say if you do nothing, you're going to do accurate pair of glasses, limit near work to, this many minutes, and then spend more time outdoors. So we'll send you home with these 3 things that you can do, just not doing anything else with us. And then we give them 6 months RX check. I might shorten that to like 4 months now, but I feel like I do every 6 months. We check their RX and we'll say, okay, mom and dad, they're up 50 cents from last year. And we said myopia is average 50 to 75 per year. Do you want to keep watching this? Up to you, and that's how that's how I will convert long-term. I've only been here for a year, so I've got to 2 other cycles.
Right.
But even the patients that we're encountering locally that have, like, you talk about myopia and its progression and how it functions as a disease, and they're like, what? I've been coming to this practice for X amount of years. I've never heard that. I'm like, okay, well, we're different generations of doctors. Different, things you've heard 20 years ago are probably no longer, valuable today. So.
Definitely get that because it's a relatively new topic for a lot of patients or parents. Is that like, well, how come nobody told me about this before? They're a bit skeptical sometimes, right? But you just got to remind them, like, there's always new things coming up, and we're trying to be on top of it and trying to be at the leading in this, as far as like making sure we're giving our patients the best option, the newest option, whatever's going to help them. And usually once you've kind of given enough information, they come around. But That's good to hear about how you set it up and you have that separate consultation and all of that, and you follow up with them. I think that's an important thing. We're working on that too. Because we don't have like a really good protocol right now, I tend to still do a lot of that consult within like the actual eye exam. I do have patients come back for a bit more of a workup, a cyclo, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I'm still having trouble separating just the routine exam from the actual myopia conversation. I tend to have most of it in that exam anyway, and kind of get the buy-in from the parents. And then we're like, all right, we're going to start this process by doing the cyclo and all of this kind of stuff. I know a
too
lot of
efficient.
colleagues who are bigger into it do like, they'll stop at your child's myopic, we need to do a consultation and come back, right? That seems to work well.
I feel like you're too efficient. You're really good. Like, you're too good. Become less good. We can't, like you said, can't cover it all at once. I've got things to pull up on this computer and play you. I created an AI talking video about myopia, and I called her Bella, and I played in Bella for the first 3 minutes, and Bella just talks about what I typed. I used Chaba to create like a whole myopia speech, and I put on my YouTube video of Bella speaking about myopia. And while she's speaking, my assistant is setting everything up, all the calculators, all that kind of stuff. Usually we'll do a cyclorefraction on that day again. And that's when they finished speaking or listening to Bella. And then I come in, and then we get into the, with the options and so on and so forth. And I don't make that appointment like cheap. I make it like, I want to see how serious you are, so you're going to pay me for my consultation fee. And what we do is sometimes we'll roll that consultation fee into their global fee. So if you end up going with the program, it's really a free consultation when you think about it. If you go with the program, but if you take my time and you decided to wait or do something else, I still want to be reimbursed for that time slot, because,
of course.
so
makes sense.
That's the way I do it.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good way of doing it.
I learned from older guys that did it well. I was like, okay, I see why that makes sense.
Yeah. That's a good point. And if you roll it into the global fee, then it just ends up being a free consultation, right?
Yeah.
That's great. All right, man. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, because you do have students coming through your practice, your adjunct faculty at the Chicago College of Optometry, I wanted to ask you a little bit of advice that you could give to either, maybe let's do a couple of pieces of advice for current students, and then maybe a couple for new grads, just because they're obviously in slightly different parts of their career.
I will start with current students. I have very similar advice to, I think, what Emile Bridge said. It was like, be deliberate. If you know you want to do something, take that type of rotation. I just had a student, like, he's like, oh man, I'm so dreading my next rotation. It's like in some type of VT clinic. And I was like, you gonna do VT when you get out? Like, no, but that was like, it was in this area and it's like nice and sunny. It's in a sunny climate. I was like, well, get ready for a wasted 3 months. I was like, fine, like really study for your boards, then make use of that time, because you're gonna have like a 3-month break essentially. So learn during that 3-month break. Because when he said what he wanted to do was nothing to do with that. And I tell him, like, be deliberate, because these windows that you get to spend with these professionals, they're going to teach you, some are going to teach you things that other people are not going to want to teach you. Like, I like teaching about business and about the business side of eye care, and they don't really get there anywhere. And I said, the more you ask me, the more I'll share. I'm like, I'm going to be out there and like, open up. But I was like, I will tell you things that other ODs might not. I want to keep it close to your to their vest. I was like, I'm here to teach you, so I'll open up. You can ask me those questions. But the current ones, I would say, be deliberate and plan now. Like, I was getting my NPI. For us, we have like DA and NPI number, and our NPI number is how we identify a provider identification number. So I did that. I had that number done way before I graduated, like 8 months, and that number helps you get onto panels and move faster through that process when you get into a clinic. So I'm like, if I'm hiring you and you tell me you already have your NPI, man, I'm already feeling better about you, because I know I can get my credentialing department to get you on all these insurances faster than the other person who hasn't even thought about their NPI yet until I just told them. So I was like, get your NPI now, put down your school address or put down your home address, and then later you can swap it. So I tell them some of these things they can get out of the way while they're, kind of waiting, ready to, waiting to go. Yeah. And the new grads it's tough with the new grads, because there's so much student debt, and then like styles of work are changing. People want to work 4 days, a lot of our graduating, colleagues are are female. Like, we're becoming more and more rare. It used to be like a boys club. Now it's becoming a girls club. Boys are just kind of saying hello.
Yeah.
So for those folks, like those are going to be like doctors that I would love to hire. I'm going to love to have a couple of moms working because they're going to want to do 3 days a week, and that'll keep them super happy. And I'll be wanting to do something like that as well for an employee. It makes my life easier. It makes their schedule easier. I think that's the wave of the future. Like 3 or 4 week days. Not like I'm still like one of the old school guys. I'm still working like 6 days, but I'm a business owner. So like, I get excited working 6 days a week. You give me one week of beach time and I'll work for you all year. Like I don't need any time off. So for them, I would say, figure out what you want to do and how you want to live and what lifestyle you want to have. And then, plan your career, accordingly. There's a lot of doctors that go into a practice on false premise of becoming a partner. That's so many stories. I just sat with my buddy from Texas. We were roommates, and he started working for OD with the carrot of partnership, partial ownership. And I'm sitting with him. He came into town for the Bears game, and we're sitting and talking shop and whatever. Now, how's everything going over there? Well, they sold to VC. And now I'm an employee again. So now I'm working with the other employee on getting our own thing and getting out of this employment feeling. So then you look back like, man, you have to
I've
be
heard
like
that. I've heard that story a couple of times.
Man,
that type of story for sure. Yeah, that's tricky. And I think it's unfortunate when someone kind of dangles that carrot. But yeah. Understanding kind of what the situation there is and trying to figure out and knowing where you want to end up. Do you want to actually be an owner, or do you just want the kind of flexibility of just being an associate OD kind of thing? That makes a big difference. And ownership is not always what I think you picture it to be either, right? Like you might end up being an owner. And the funny thing is people think that somehow that gives you more flexibility. You don't have to work as much. It does some days, but most of the time it doesn't.
Ownership is stressful.
It's the other way around usually.
Yeah.
So that's great, man. Before I wrap up, there's always 2 questions that I ask you if you listen to the podcast. There's a couple of questions I like to ask everybody at the end. Before I do that, how can people get in touch with you if people want to learn more about you or talk to you, connect with you?
If they want to see the goofy side of me, they can check out my TikTok, or they'll see skits. I like to do skits with my students or without my students or whatever.
That's
I like.
Awesome.
Keep it fresh, keep it happy, and it lets me be, lets my creative juices flow. I did skits back in high school, so I'm always coming with funny skits. Sometimes they're gonna anger some ODs with some certain stuff. So they get like, oh, you can't do skits about that. You'll be making fun of this OD that has this this thing, and so they get struck down. But I just like my parents thought I was gonna be a lawyer or actor. I don't think they picked doctor. So I love doing that. It keeps
optometry is you could still use those skills.
Yeah. That's why I love about our profession.
TikTok?
TikTok is Melrose Eye Care. So my current practice is called Melrose. It won't be called Melrose forever, but for now it's called Melrose Eye Care. That's my TikTok and my Instagram. My dry eye specific Instagram is Oko Dry Eye, like OKO, like a Eastern European word for eye.
Oh, okay.
So it's Oko Dry Eye. That's our Instagram, and we got skits on both.
Okay.
So
Melrose Eye Care or Oko Dry Eye. Got it.
Yep.
So the last couple questions I ask every guest. The first one is, if we could hop in a time machine and go back to a point in your life where you were struggling, you're welcome to share that specific moment and what you're going through if you're open to that. If not, the main thing is, what advice would you give to your younger self at that time?
Let's see, struggling. I wouldn't even call my upbringing or through the kind of trauma we went through struggling. For me, it was a struggle for my parents. So when I see what my parents went through, nothing is a struggle. Like, man, we're working like minimum wage jobs. My dad used to go and like move carpets off a truck for like $20 on a Sunday for like 5-6 hours. And that $20 was a lot of money back in 1996 or whatever it was. So I've seen my parents struggle to give me, my brother, like the next step up, like up on society or whatever. So I've seen people struggle. I don't struggle. Like I don't see my life as a struggle. I see life as a bunch of fun time and mistakes you make, and you learn with making mistakes. I have no problems with my students making mistakes. It's only going to teach them. It's only going to make them better for the next one. You usually don't make a mistake when you make it once. So I tell them, hey, even when they ask me, doc, this patient has a narrow angle. I was like, great, dilate them. Go for it. I was like, close them in my office. I challenge you to close that angle. I was like, because I'd rather be closed here than her closed, in 2-3 weeks. I was like, so close her. I'll fix it. We'll fix it if you close her. And maybe not the best way to teach students about closing angles, but I tell them why I think that. I go back and I look at the angle. I was like, listen, kid, this may look narrow to you, but there's going to be much more narrow angles you're going to see. Like, this is nothing. So yeah, I don't consider any part of, like, there's always times in your life where you're having a tough time. Man, my first anatomy test in optometry school, so I bombed that thing. I did an all-nighter, and the anatomy test was just so out of left field. I bombed, and I was like, man, woo, this could be it, huh? Like, what am I going to do about the rest of this? So that was a lot of stress. Like, anatomy is like learning a new language, and my genius took comparative animal anatomy in college because I wanted to do something different instead of like human anatomy. So then I got tossed into human anatomy. Oh man, it was a rough first semester for me, for sure, in optometry school.
That's funny.
That was yeah.
So, funny enough, anatomy was my strong suit. I loved anatomy. It was like, I don't know why. I guess like memorizing different features of the body was something that came easy to me. Even neuroanatomy, which was...
Neuro is my thing, man.
Oh yeah?
Love neuro. Because I color coded all my notes. Like, I would draw this nerve blue, this nerve purple, yellow, whatever. So I had all these color codes. So when we sat on the neuro test, I'm like, oh, they're talking about the yellow one that hits the blue and goes up here, So I walked out of first neuro test and I'm all cheesy. That was so much fun. And there was I looked down and there was girls crying. And I'm like,
after neuroanatomy, a lot of people are crying.
Yeah.
So the last question I like to ask is, everything that you've achieved to this point in your career, how much of it would you say is due to luck and how much is due to hard work?
We create luck with hard work. People that work hard put themselves in a place to be lucky. And this comes even from like football. Like, listen to coaches talk about, like, NFL coaches. Luck is created. You build yourself up to luck. I tell my kid when he practices soccer, I was like, the more you train, the more lucky you get. The more likely you're going to be in the right place to score that goal, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, luck doesn't happen by standing around the middle of the field waiting for the ball to come to you. You got to work to be in the opportunity to become lucky. So I consider, all those places, all the rooms that I've been in, and people that I've met, like yourself, and many colleagues that we spoke to in Vegas, that I'm lucky to be in that room, for sure. I'm lucky. I've done a lot of stuff. I feel like I'm paying my dues back by teaching the new generation and making little carbon copies of myself and sending them out into the world. But all that luck has come with, many years of work. It. You talked about what this podcast takes in like, when we're done, what it all entails. The editing is the hardest part of any videos, any TikTok I put up. Man, I'm editing that thing for a week. People are like, put it up already. I was like, hold on, I got to put one more like little animation at the end. Like there's like one thing missing. So
I think that's a great answer. One thing I've found myself saying is, like, a lot of times people are like, oh, you're always in the, nice that you were kind of in the right place at the right time, and I was like, trust me, I've been in a lot of the wrong places before I ended up in the right place. Like, it didn't happen just by chance this time. It's like, because I was trying to be knocking on a bunch of different doors, and in this particular scenario, after all of those attempts, I was in the right place at the right time. But it takes all of that work to get there. So I think that makes sense. I like that, you kind of make your luck, or the harder you work, the luckier you get, kind of thing. So that kind of puts both things into perspective. You need them both. But you can't really have one without the other, or at least to be successful, you can't.
For sure. Absolutely. I agree. 1000%.
Well, thanks, man. Listen, I appreciate this. I know this was kind of a long time. We're in the works here, but I'm glad I finally got you on and got to hear your story and share your story. And I hope people listen to this and get some inspiration from it and get some perspective from it. Any final words you want to share before we wrap up?
I love what you do. Don't stop. Keep doing what you do. I love exciting, fun, conversational podcasts. You bring that to our community. I think that was missing. I knew you randomly off of Instagram, just like we were like each other. I would share your things, and then you say, hey, thanks for sharing. I was like, for sure. I love helping people, especially like you're so grateful for everything. And I'm not a big thank you type of person. I don't need those things. I just want to celebrate people that I find interesting. And and they're doing good things for our profession. Lori something, she was like a president of AOA in 2000, I think 11. She visited our school and she said something, and I always repeat this: leave your profession better than you find it, than you found it. So I try to do that through my students, through my education of public and whatever. And I think you're doing an amazing job, and I implore you to continue. Don't stop.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate that's very kind of you. And thank you for the support, man. It really means a lot. And I hope we get to kind of connect more and more and do that exact thing. Let's both, all of us, continue to try to leave the profession better than we found it. I think that's a great mantra to have. So
I look forward to us growing gray and old together. I found my, you found your community, and that's going to be the community that you're going to have all those like young photos. And then 10 years later, oh man, like, look at
Love it,
him,
man.
look at that hair. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Love it, man. Thank you very much, dude. I appreciate it. Appreciate the time. And thank you, everybody who's listening and watching to the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I will see you guys in the next episode.